Good evening and welcome back to the Conservatarian Exchange. Going to the Liberty Block, we have our regular 5 cohort all together. That would be the Department of Eds, Dick, Mike, and myself, Steve. Howdy.
Hello, everyone.
Wonderful evening.
Hey, everybody.
I'll give you guys a choice. Iran, Lindsey Graham, or potluck. Mike, you got a great shirt. You can start.
Oh, gee, thank you. It came straight from China. How do you like that? I was
bet it's
looking for, I
it's
was
a
looking
beautiful
for
red,
a
white, and blue
shirt.
shirt with a bald eagle.
I'm looking for a shirt, and I'm like, I want to get it for July 4th, have it for the last show. Figuring it was definitely made in the USA, I thought. And then I'm like, where's this shirt? It wasn't coming. Didn't get it there on time. And finally, I'm like, I go to do the tracking, and I'm like, it was still in China.
Yeah, well.
But what can I say? Look, I figured this will be worth something one day after the demise of the nation.
There you go. And
Nostalgia.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. I guess we could start with Lindsey Graham. Wow, I mean, what a shock. I mean, it's funny because part of me says, we could do better in South Carolina, and I think we can do better in South Carolina. But it's also hard not to have a little bit of a connection with the guy in the sense that he's been around so long. And he became a bit of a right-hand man for Trump. Like a lot of us, he wasn't with them at the beginning, and he was as time went on, or at least he seemed to be. I'm not sure how much of it was authentic. A lot of these people, it's all about their ego. So I mean, it's a shame that he passed away. I mean, apparently, he felt something, and he was going to do the Meet the Press show on Sunday, and then go get a medical attention, and unfortunately, it was just too late. And
did he represent South Carolina or just Sean Hannity?
I tell you, it's bizarre when people pass away like this. It's like everything is, what a great guy he was, and everything like that. It's like
I can open it up. So look
He was a horrible person, and he was a horrible senator. And
yeah,
I don't wish death on anyone, but the country will be much better off without him in office.
Well, depending who.
Oh, there are a lot worse than him in Congress. I have to say.
I mean,
not on the Republican side. I mean, that's why Rush Limbaugh nicknamed him Lindsey Grahamnesty, because he wouldn't take any time between attempting to legalize illegal aliens, grant amnesty to them. I think Rush was in person, I'm sure, a very nice fellow, and if he were on today, he wouldn't say what I'm going to say. But no. Graham was not a good guy. He was never a good guy. He was a fake Republican his entire career. He never met a spending bill he didn't like. He never met a war he didn't like. I mean, when we think of all the disastrous wars, he cheered for all of them. A terrible person, and I mean, hopefully
you're describing every Republican.
No, he was the biggest warmonger, wasn't he? On the
South Carolina, he was. South Carolina is a very conservative state, and they have elected 2 liberal Republicans, Graham and.
But they have an open primary, Ed. That's why they get liberal Republicans, because Democrats have a check on who the Republicans can nominate.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same here in Virginia, and it should be stopped. Obviously, I mean, either the Republican Party is a private organization who can choose their nominees the way they want, or it's some semi-statist organization, in which case maybe.
Well, unfortunately, that is controlled by state law. In fact, that was a project here in North Carolina that I was taking up a couple of years with the breakfast group I'm with, was trying to close our primaries. I had a number of senators and state congressmen come in for breakfast, and all argued, no, we fought for so long to get it open because we want to get more people interested in the party. And now we got Democrats changing and running on the ticket. We got Democrats voting in our primaries, even though it's closed. You got, they just changed the independent and then vote in our primaries.
And you get Democrats putting up people with the same name as Republican, like in
I brought that up
about that last week. I mean, it's nuts.
So, I agree with your analysis, Ed, but I can tell you that this went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court came down and said, because these private political parties are relying on the state apparatus to conduct elections, the state does have the right to condition how the election process works, how it's implemented. And I mean, I don't agree with it, but I mean, that's the law, and it's at least a plausible reading of the First Amendment.
But the state legislature can change that.
Correct.
My understanding is the Republicans like it, like you said, then otherwise they would change it.
Well, they thought it was going to open the party, bring more people into the party, and it has not really had that effect.
I think
But
that's a
it
rationalization.
keeps people like Lindsey Graham in power, and that's what
Exactly.
they wanted.
I
You
think
know.
it's just another way that the establishment liberal Republicans keep the conservative Republican base in check. That's what I think.
100%.
I mean, South Carolina in particular, I worked in 2014 on trying to open the primary in South Carolina, and they're just opposed to it. And the Republicans have controlled both houses of the legislature and the governorship for more than a quarter century in South Carolina. They've had the votes to take care of this problem. They don't want to take care of the problem. And you have to ask yourself why.
Well,
Answer seems pretty simple and very sad.
I just wanted to comment on Lindsey Graham because once again, Ed gave a really powerful rendition of all of Graham's flaws, and I don't disagree with any of them. I have been a Graham hater for a long time. I don't know that he's getting whitewashed in death. Maybe he is, but
I
mean,
somewhat.
you know, he died with between $500,000 and $1.5 million. If you compare that to, Nancy Pelosi and Ilhan Omar and all these other, I mean, even Republicans that go to Congress, they make their $150,000, $200,000 a year, and somehow they all amass, $30 million. And this guy, he didn't go to Washington to get rich. He didn't get involved in the graft. The story of
He
how
certainly didn't mind the fame, because there was never a camera he didn't like.
Never a what that he didn't like?
He wanted his fame and notoriety.
Correct. But I mean, again, I'm not saying he's a perfect person. I agree with a lot of the criticisms, but I'm trying to be fair to him. And I think it's noteworthy that, he didn't go to cash in. I think that the story of how he took care of his sister is a noble story. I don't know. I mean, I feel better about him in death than I did while he was alive.
Well, I mean, the only person you're not allowed to praise, the only person you're not allowed to praise excessively when they die is Lindsey Graham's predecessor, Strom Thurmond. He's the only guy that, when the usual suspects came out and praised him to high heaven, like you're supposed to do, they got taken aback from it because at one point in one speech he praised segregation. So, I mean, Lindsey Graham learned that lesson, and
we know from Robert Byrd that we do not allow segregationists to get glory after they die. So don't confuse the issue.
And Joe Biden.
Yes.
I'm sure when Joe Biden passes away, if that already hasn't happened,
Biden
he will be praised by everyone.
He made his speech about Byrd, didn't he?
Biden and Mitch are both actually good.
Yeah, well, let's move.
They're in the same place in the same facility.
Strom Thurmond committed the worst sin a person can ever commit. He was a Democrat, and he changed parties to the Republicans.
Yeah.
That was the sin. It wasn't his support of segregation. Everybody supported segregation back then.
How happy are we? What's that?
I was just going to say, I mean, part of this, which is like awkward, we're almost feeling maybe a little bit sentimental for the guy. They're there for so long, and they gain the celebrity status, and that's part of the problem, right? Is that we don't want them there. We don't. You know what I mean? They're not supposed to be gaining that kind of notoriety and fame. You're supposed to serve for a couple of years and get the hell out and leave. But that's kind of where we are. I think what Ed was saying was of course correct, and I think it does apply to the vast majority of Republicans. You could have described as you described, Graham. That's also a big part of the problem that we're facing.
Well, he was more.
So maybe something good can come out of it. I don't know, because maybe there's momentum with the Save America Act that passed the House again. It's supposed to go to the Senate. They're trying to get it passed with 50% for reconciliation. I mean,
no way that's going to be able to.
I don't know.
Well, the weird thing is,
I don't know if it's worth getting it passed that way.
There is a way to pass it with reconciliation, and that is that J.D. Vance has the power in the Senate to rearrange things. He does. Doesn't matter necessarily that the Senate, he's the president of the Senate. If he orders that it pass, he can do it. And it's a weird thing.
How is the SAVE Act related to budget issues?
Doesn't matter.
Of course it matters.
That's
the only way you get reconciliation.
But it's the parliamentarian. It's the parliamentarian who says whether it is or not.
Correct.
And the Senate, the head of the Senate, who is J.D. Vance, can overrule it, not John Thune. J.D. Vance can overrule the parliamentarian. And that's something that I think people don't realize.
Didn't that come up on January 6th or something, that whole issue that you can overrule the parliamentarian, but nobody's got the guts to do it?
Correct.
Right, but I mean, if you want to just get, you could just fire the parliamentarian too, I suppose. What's the basis for overruling them? How is this budgetary?
Yeah.
Well, obviously you
Who
could
cares,
make
though?
all sorts of, again, who cares? Do the Democrats care?
Yeah.
No. So
Right.
like,
I mean,
Can I
And-
say
and-
something?
and-
Mike, can I interrupt you
Yeah.
for a minute? Because I have a thought. I think we need to have a Lindsey Graham funeral. Do it for Lindsey. Do it for Lindsey. Let's do it for Lindsey.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
exactly what they would do. And they would force this bill through Congress because do it for Lindsey. It was the most important thing to him.
Well,
But
you
no
know what,
Republican will do that.
you know what, Steve?
They should.
That's what the Democrats did in 2002 with Paul Wellstone.
That's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
It
Do it for
backfired
Paul.
on them, though.
What's that?
It backfired on them in the midterm elections in 2002.
Oh, maybe they went
Well,
a
because
little
it was such
far.
a circus.
well, again, if we have the SAVE Act
I mean, come on.
passed, then the elections this year will be a much more favorable battleground.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like Stephen's idea.
I mean, I'm just
you
saying
don't have
we
to turn
don't
it
think
into a
that
Paul
way.
Wellstone circus.
But we don't think that way.
You know,
Maybe we should
No, we
start a
don't.
T-shirt campaign or something. Do it for
because we're
Lindsey.
normies. That's why. If you don't think that way.
So
Because we don't
you're
fight
already
the way- we
reaching
don't
the
fight the way
point.
they fight.
You're already reaching the point where it's a moot issue because even if you pass the law now, it can't be implemented by the time of the November election.
You might be right. You might be right.
States would immediately say, we can't process birth certificates that fast. We can't do this. We can't do that. Judges it up, they wouldn't nullify it, but they put a stay on it.
But so what?
What's so
So what,
hard
Dick? I
about
mean,
checking? What's so hard about checking an ID at the polling place?
But the bottom line is, okay,
It
so what,
requires proof of citizenship to register.
even if the states can't implement it for 26, let's get it passed so we know it's in place for 28. If we just
Not
sit back,
arguing, absolutely.
if we just sit back and say, oh, it can't impact 26, and we don't do anything, well, then it's not, unless it gets
Right.
passed in January or February of next year, it's not going to get passed in time for the 28 election. I mean, it's got to get done.
So we
Well,
don't have
this
anybody in
would
the
be-
Republican Party who would think along my lines. The Do It for Lindsey campaign, right?
I don't know. Trump is
Trump-
thinking
Trump
along
is-
those lines.
Yeah, I mean that's the exact kind of thing he would be good at.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, he said that.
But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, Ed Tate, you were talking about the Supreme Court the last time around, how we need activists, right? We don't necessarily want them, ruling, the way they think is really right when it comes to birthright citizenship. Just do the right thing. And it's the same thing with the Save America Act. Who cares what stupid parliamentarians said? Just do it.
Force it down because
Let's do it.
again, we don't like
Who
fighting
cares
by
what they
their
say?
rules because they don't fight by rules.
Well,
But
Well, there are no rules anymore, and that's where we're
you
at.
sound like Ed M.
Which
sure, we're not.
it was in a dissent where some justice, maybe it was Oliver Wendell Holmes, said the Constitution is not a suicide pact.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Well, we're in a kind of an existential crisis right now between all the things going
yeah.
on. We do not need to be strict constitutionalists to our own death.
All right, what are
Um,
people's
well,
thoughts
is it-
on Sister Graham? Was this a good choice? Was it good to do it so quick? What's
No, no, and no. God.
Okay. Can you elaborate Dr.
don't-
Powell?
Look, I don't know anything about this woman, but if I just lost my sister, why would I take her job in the Senate? I mean, it's not clear this woman knows anything about politics, and so she's just going to be a tool of the machine. If there's some decent politician in South Carolina that you could appoint, or someone who in industry or anyone who has some sort of accomplishments, but I mean,
I'm going to
sure
take the
she's a
opposite
nice
view, Ed.
woman.
I'm going to take the opposite view. Just last week, you reminded us all about William Buckley's statement that he'd rather be governed by the first 100 people in the Boston phone book than by the politicians. And so, what if she doesn't have any experience? I mean, that not only is that a plus in general, but I think it's okay that she's a placeholder. I don't want some grubby politician who's just using the seat as a platform to launch a campaign for November. Let her be in the seat. Let her do the best she can, and she's
then-
leaving in January.
Then he should go to the phone book just like Apollo Creed did, and pick somebody out of the phone book.
That would be funny.
I agree with both Eds, except was this partially a move on the governor's part to not have to make a choice between anybody real, and this way he shuts everybody up?
Yeah,
I
I think
I think it was a reason for. I'm guessing he's going to run for the Senate seat, so he didn't want a politician in the incumbent spot.
You can look at this. There's been, I saw 58 politicians have been replaced in office by their governors over the years. and several in the Senate. I don't remember the exact count, but several in the Senate. The state laws are set up to a point, and most often you choose somebody, it's even like California. What did Newsom do? As much as I don't care for Newsom, it's somebody that cannot run in the next election. It's a placeholder. Assigning family members to those slots there's a lot of history behind that. And as Ed was saying, you talk about pick the first 100 in the phone book. Anybody with reasonable intelligence, and there's nothing to suggest she doesn't. In fact, she had a very good education. She's very well educated. Can at least manage a seat for 6 months.
Is she conservative? Do we know anything?
Why
about
are
her?
we so sure she's leaving in 6
well-
months?
I mean,
Pardon me?
Why are we so sure she's leaving in 6 months?
Because that's when his
Yeah.
term ends.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Why
she's going to
wouldn't she
stay.
get reelected?
If she wouldn't run, I mean, that's the
She's
idea.
not
Why?
running.
I'm saying, but how do we know that?
Well, we
the
don't know that.
primary is going to be August 11th. She would have to
Right.
announce immediately that she's running, and it looks like we lost Ed temporarily.
Yeah.
She'd have to make an immediate announcement, and she hasn't. She's not. I mean,
Yeah.
Nancy Mace has made an announcement, or at least created an exploratory committee.
Yeah.
I think Governor McMaster has made an announcement, but she hasn't made any announcement that
Yeah.
she's intending to run.
And I think that question would have been asked of her.
Yeah, but that means nothing because until you get into the seat of power, you don't crave it as much.
Yeah.
So she may be
Well-
a totally normal person, but once you're in the Senate, you can't be a normal person. So,
Okay, she isn't going to make that decision in 2 weeks.
and she may.
well,
But the
My-
point
I-
is,
honestly,
once
like-
you're, treated like
my,
that,
my first reaction when Trump said that was like, weren't you the guy against the Bush dynasties and all this stuff? And now you're just like, oh, pick the sister. I was like, come on,
Well,
please stop.
he's got his own dynasty that he's looking to create. I'm
oh
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I don't know. Pick a good conservative, whoever it is that hopefully will run and end up being in there.
Yeah, I think you didn't want to have to
Yeah.
choose. And like you say, if he's
Right.
running, he's not going to give it to anybody. But all right, let's move on
But-
to the other death. I mean, Mitch McConnell.
Mitch, we
What-
get it, Mitch,
what-
yes.
Didn't we knock Biden for this kind of stuff? And
Well, you know what? It's interesting because I was reading how the governor of Kentucky has the right to fill that seat, and he's a Democrat.
right,
So Republicans in the
Well,
legislature.
it's not an
there were-
unrestricted right.
Well, the Republicans were taking steps there to try to prevent him from putting in a Democrat, and I saw him disputing that. So
My
let's just-
understanding is that the Kentucky GOP would be able to send, under Kentucky law, sends 3 names to the governor, and the governor has to pick one of those 3 names. That's my understanding.
that's
Okay, I mean,
interesting.
Have
when
you
I
pulled
saw
up the
the
law?
when I saw the governor making comments, he basically said the Republicans can't do what they're trying to do, which is to prevent him from appointing whoever he wants to the seat if McConnell were to die. So anyway, the thought I had was maybe we do need weekend at Mitch's if that is true and that is the case. Because, we need Mitch to be alive until I don't know when, until election day at least. But
Yeah, and and all we complained about elder abuse and all this other stuff, just depends whose side of the
Yeah.
fence it's happening on because it's really sad. One of you guys put something up on the thread this week that he's doing this for us, right? Because we elected him and he's going to serve out his term, blah blah blah.
Yeah, well, he put up the post, and then everybody's saying the picture was fake, that it might have been fake and AI created or whatever. He's in the hospital with his wife.
I thought his
Yeah,
wife
they
was in
put out
China.
a whole statement. I got the statement on my email because I'm tapped into their office, so I've been getting their press releases for years, and it just struck me as pathetic because let's just assume he is alive. He's basically saying, I'm half dead, but I'm going to carry out my term anyway. He doesn't want to vacate the seat. I don't
When
know.
does his term end? This year, right?
Yeah, he's
Sorry.
up for well, yeah, he's vacating, right? So it is supposed to be somebody else. But yes, his term is
Okay,
up.
so let's pull up the law in Kentucky on replacement of the senator. The Kentucky legislature did recently change the law to take away the power of the governor to do that, but in the process, they require a special election to replace a deceased senator. The election could only happen during regular elections, so the essence of it is that seat would be vacant until it's filled in January by whatever the results of the November election is that McConnell's already not running.
So why would Governor Bashir, be demanding that McConnell give us, a better statement on his health and whether he can continue to serve?
Trying to score political points of some kind.
Very
Just
interesting.
really,
I mean, is
it is
McConnell going to
bizarre.
show up for votes? Is he healthy enough to do that?
Well, that was
I
the
mean,
thing.
Bashir-
He was saying no. I believe his
Bashir
thing was that he
vetoed the law,
would-
and the legislature overrode his veto.
Wow.
So it remains
happens if the-
empty.
What happens
That's
if
what I'm
the
reading.
what happens if the death happens too close to election day for a special election to happen in the interim?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It would be during the regular election.
No, but if a guy dies the
Now-
day before the election, what would happen?
that person would still be on the ballot.
You couldn't have a special election the next day.
Right,
That's
you
what he's
couldn't, no,
asking,
of
right?
course.
So would it stay empty for 6 years? Would it stay empty for 2 years? Maybe, who knows if they
Well, it looks like it would stay open for 2 years.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But I mean, if he's not going to show up for votes, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
He wasn't a good vote for anything anyway, except judges.
Judges, but he's not
McConnell
doing
was
that
good on judges.
And on campaign finance reform.
Yeah, but that's never been, that hasn't been in play for like 20 some odd years. So yeah, he was good back in the day, but like, that's not a
Yeah.
particular issue right now.
And that was Kentucky House Bill 622 for anybody that wants to look up.
Definitely. All right, guys, we got to talk about Iran. I haven't listened to the news in the last nanosecond, so what's changed?
War's back on.
Are we sure? Have you heard Trump in the last 3 seconds?
Well,
Yeah,
he didn't call it a war.
It's a special
Call it whatever you
military
want.
operation. It's
You
a
can call it
special
whatever you want.
military operation.
Ceasefire. It's not a ceasefire. It's 20%. It's not
It's a conflict.
20%.
The conflict.
Is anybody going to tell him that when you're president, you can't just change your mind every 5 minutes?
Who says you can't?
I know.
Law.
The world markets, which are gonna, it's gonna hurt everybody in the entire universe when he does that kind of stuff.
He's been going at it for several days. Gas or oil is up $9.
Yeah. First of all, that's not a good thing. And second of all, I mean, I wouldn't want to own any business. I wouldn't be planning any business that in any way is down that supply chain because you just can't run the world that way.
Well, what do you mean you can't run the world that way? Who says that Trump is running a world, and what way are you talking
I'm
about?
saying he's destroying the world. People in business
think-
plan on shipments and receiving shipments. Truck companies
But if
plan on
you-
receiving shipments. Everybody does. Everything is shook up every time this stuff happens.
But I'm going to take the other side of that one, because if you look at what's happened to the price of oil in the last couple of days, or even in the last week or two, it's gone from 67 to 78 or so, which, I mean, yes, it's higher, and yes, that's a little more than 10%, but I mean, it's not 150, it's not 200. It seems to me that the world is adjusting to what's going on in the Straits of Hormuz, and that the straits that oil coming through the straits is not nearly as important as it was.
I'm not only talking
it's
about
not just
oil.
oil.
There's
It's
thousands of
liquid
cargo
natural
ships.
gas and it's liquid natural gas and fertilizer too. Those are the two
I mean,
things
there's a
that
lot of stuff that comes through there and nobody can count on it. And that affects supply chains all the way down. If it's fertilizer, that affects an entire farming season. And you've got a plan. People don't operate on what happened 5 minutes ago. They plan 6 months ahead, years ahead, if they're in business. I just don't get it.
Well, I mean, I think that Trump has oriented his presidency towards business growth and business development. I have zero doubt in my mind that he's aware of what you're talking about and that it's front and center in his mind. I don't think that he's primarily interested in military issues. I think that his whole presidency is based on what we need to do to grow the economy and help everybody in America and around the world get rich.
The only thing I disagree with you is that would be uppermost in his mind, but nothing trumps his
Then why-
narcissism. Nothing trumps his
then why did-
narcissism.
why
His
did he go to war with
narcissism comes
Iran?
before anything else, and he will change his mind and work only on his narcissism. And that's why he can't control what he does. Other than that,
But-
yes, he's very interested in the world economy.
Yeah, but I mean,
Why did he go to war with Iran?
Yeah, I mean, if all his motivation is
he's a
economic,
casino magnet. He likes making big bets. That's why he went
Yeah,
to war with Iran.
I think there's something to what Ed is saying, and I think that Trump has a longer term view on how he can reduce the price of oil and make oil flow throughout the world if the Iranian threat is tamed. Now, maybe he's going to fail at that. Maybe he's been failing at that. Dick and I have a different
He's
view
failing.
than Ed and Mike, but it certainly hasn't been a perfect campaign. Maybe he's going to wind up failing, but I think that the Trump strategy on going to war with Iran was we're going to neuter their threat, and in the process, We're going to make the strait more free and more safe, and we're going to improve the economic conditions all over the world. That's
So it
why
had nothing to do with nuclear weapons.
well, that's part of neutering the threat.
Well, I saw Senator Kennedy reiterating what Dick had shared on the show recently, which was that the Iranian threat of ballistic missiles was growing, and that they could soon reach, a lot of capitals in Europe, and they were becoming a more menacing threat. They were building up their drone capability, and I think the argument is that's why Trump decided to go and do what he did.
He went further and said that there was already threat plans, blackmail plans in the works to blackmail Europe. You're going to do this, or we're going to nuke you. We're not nuke you, but we're going to hit you.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
if he
can't
had come
stop that.
forward and said that at the outset, I think he would have built up a little bit more support.
I think Kennedy was a little bit circumspect in the way he finally got that out. But I think the issue was at the beginning is Trump was trying, and our government was trying to protect assets. That information had to come from somewhere. It didn't just come off the damn street.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is now it's like Iran hasn't played the game. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not negotiating in good faith, as we all expected would happen. And
So what you've
where
seen-
are we?
So what you've seen recently in the bombing strikes, if you've listened to the targeting, we just took out a number of the rail bridges. The road bridges are going next, and you can expect by the end of the week he's going to start hitting the power stations.
Okay, well, he
will be back in negotiations and loving
that's
them
the
because they're
that's
such
the
smart
problem.
people and they're wonderful people, and now they believe in me, and now we're going to have the best deal, and there's never been such a deal in the history of the world. How many times has he done this already?
Yes, this is the problem.
This is
And he
round
was-
12.
He could. One second he's saying basically they're gonna, we're gonna bomb them till oblivion. I'm gonna take out their bridges and I'm gonna do this, that, and then hopefully they'll negotiate. Like, what do you not get at this point? You're not gonna negotiate. There's no negotiation.
Well, I mean,
You have to bring them to their knees.
The problem with the
Wait.
MOU was it basically said something on the order of Iran will sort of manage the free shipping, and Iran thought that it meant that everybody had to tell them when you're going through and who you are and what you're doing and when you're going and whatnot, and they wouldn't charge a toll, but they need to be told up front. And apparently these ships went without telling them for whatever reason, primarily because the U.S. had a completely different understanding of the MOU, and then Iran shot at them, which was it was bad faith on Iran's part, right? If that's the thing, is you don't start shooting over something like that. You talk to the Pakistanis and you say, hey, these ships didn't do what we said they're going to do, and you go back and forth. So it really was bad faith on the Iranians' part, but it also could be that there is no central government in Iran that has power over the dispersed, semi-independent IRGC elements that control these drones throughout Iran.
That is the real issue right there.
Yeah.
Is there is no true functional government in Iran right now.
The IRGC is in control.
Right, but they're splintered.
Yeah.
Or independent, or however you want.
Yeah, IRGC was always in control. That is that is not the problem. It's just when you take out all the generals, there's a lot of colonels and majors who think they should be the next general, right? And so I'm sure there's a lot of jockeying behind the scenes. This guy who's supposed to be the supreme Ayatollah, he's allegedly injured in one of the bombings, and so I don't think he's particularly. So who's the regent? And there's like a bunch of different. It's like Persia's like this, right? There's unless you have a strong emperor, there's no real coherent leadership who can. Like if somebody's got a bunch of drones in southern Iran and he's a colonel in charge of them, like somebody tells him, well, don't shoot now. Who the hell are you to tell me not to shoot? I'll shoot whatever I want to shoot. It's that kind of a chaotic situation.
Right, but Trump is supposed to know that too.
Well, I mean, Trump has made one misstep after another, so I'm not sure he knows anything at this point.
Yeah.
So, I think we could bomb them into oblivion at this point, and they're still not going to cave in.
Well, if you really did, they would, but we're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. I was very upset when I saw Trump said that they can't take to the streets because they're not armed. I'm like, did you just wake up? I mean, you know how I feel about the 40 or 52,000 people that were killed. Yeah, we've been saying that for a long time. What do you want from them? Take over the government when the government can mow you down with tanks? Like, who are you kidding? So that confuses me as well.
Yeah, that's why you're sitting here saying, even if we did everything that we needed to do and we obliterated them and won, what kind of regime are we getting at that point?
Well, unless you wiped out the whole IRGC, that's apparently what you're getting, and don't even know if that's physically possible. I have no clue.
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
Well,
taking
that
that
means
risk
there's
right
no end
now.
in sight.
it's again, it's like, okay, we think the German people are probably decent, but we want to kill all of the SS and Gestapo people in the country. Obviously, that is not a workable plan, and so we went total war, right? Plus, we had, 20, 30 million Russians helping us, and a couple million British, and a couple 100,000 French, and we went and crushed them. Well, we don't have 20 million Russians or 30 million Russians to help us this time. We don't even have an army that would be capable of doing Desert Storm anymore or the invasion of Iraq. We just don't have the ability to treat Iran like we treated Germany and Japan. So we're in a very bad situation where we keep bombing the people who are our friends, in Tehran. Most of the people in Tehran were, at least before the war, very much against the government because they're more modern and urbanized and, Western oriented. So we keep throwing bombs at them, and we can't seem to find the drone places, just like the Russians can't find them in Ukraine. It's a very bad
Ed,
situation.
Ed, why don't you think that economic strangulation can work on them? I mean,
I think it can. I think it can help bring them to the table, but like it didn't help.
what if we
Cuba
said-
over
we
60
said no-
years did it.
It absolutely helped Cuba. Is Cuba a threat to the United States right now? No. Strangulation worked.
Yeah,
We
but
should
it
be proud
didn't.
of
It
that.
didn't. Economic strangulation didn't achieve regime change, which is all what we.
But we
what
don't
we
need. I mean,
hope for.
you've been arguing since February. We don't need regime change, and we can't get regime change.
I know.
Okay.
I've been arguing. I'd love to have regime change, but we can't get it. That's what I've been
So,
arguing.
We don't really.
Trump has never been for regime change. He's been for economic strangulation. And
Well, now he's not even in favor
But-
of getting rid of their nuclear program. All we're doing is fighting over keeping the strait open. I mean,
Right,
he's
to
dropped
get back
pretty
to
much.
status quo ante.
There's
Yeah,
more reason and incentive to want the Iranian regime gone. The Castros or whatever, they were no threat.
Well,
What did-
Castro was funding all sorts of very revolutionary governments in Central and South America, even in Africa. He was a bad dude. There is no question that we would rather have him gone.
So what is enough to get it through to everybody that Iran's not going to have a nuke? Does he have to drop a couple of megaton weapons on top of their piles that they've already destroyed to get it through people's heads?
Well,
I
we
mean,
don't have any
I don't think a
megatons,
person
but
could
that's
be
okay.
more clear that Iran cannot have a nuke than Trump has been.
Trump can't stop Iran from having a nuke, period.
It doesn't seem so. No.
No, he
I mean,
can't.
we-
He's going to be president for 2 more years, period. This is all ridiculous.
We could do midnight hammers again if we had decent intel on like where they were doing their nuclear processing. We could do that. That's something we could do. We're very good at destroying things. But this war where we decapitated their government and whatnot, I just didn't see what. I've just never really seen what the point was. If Midnight Hammer was a success,
Maybe the only
Yeah.
solution is the one that Dick proposed last week, which was more of a long-term play. Right?
Which we're not going to do.
we start hitting their oil infrastructure, they hit our Gulf allies' oil infrastructure. We get into we get into serious economic problems ourselves. So, Ed is right that I think economic strangulation for Iran will help, but help what? What do we want, right? What is it that we want? It's not going to help overthrow the regime. It's going to help make them poorer. It might help bring them to the table, but what is our?
When they
if we
start
bring them-
starving to death, it's going to
Well,
change
they're not going to
minds.
starve to death because they'll just make some deal with the Russians. That's not.
So
Remember,
it's
Russia.
gonna be-
Russia.
The goals are
Russia's
no nukes and stop with the terrorism. But they have no desire to stop it either. I mean, what are you going to do? Again,
I just think that Trump's plan is to strangle them long term the way that we've strangled Cuba. It took from 1959 to I mean, we're 2026, so
Yeah.
it's 67 years. But I don't know
mean,
how long it'll take to strangle the Iranians. I think. I mean, I'm no military guy. Dick is a better person to talk about military stuff, but it seems to me that if Karg Island is the pivot point for where they send their oil out into ships, that would be the location to take. Maybe you take their
Right.
oil. That would facilitate their strangulation, I would think.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the Trump way, to use economic power to achieve political ends. That
Right.
seems to be part of
Everything hinges on the Strait right now. So, if you're really serious, then we have to take control of it.
Yeah, but supposedly the strait's not going to matter in 5 years. So
Well,
that's
according
really a
to
short.
according to the Spear plan, no.
So, yeah.
Well, I heard something today about working with them to help build up their pipelines. Who knows?
Not
Yeah,
opposed
I
to
think
it.
we can
Something
get out
approved.
of this. I think we can get out of this in 5 years or so. But most pipelines nowadays, like you see the Alaska pipeline or something like that, are mostly above ground and only underground for a certain length. And anything that's fixed and above ground is a target.
Mhm.
You see, that's the problem. So you can say, oh, it would be easy to build a pipeline from Saudi Arabia to Oman, for
Right.
instance. Well, it wouldn't be easy,
Right.
but it would be doable. But to build
Plus-
it underground,
Yeah.
because
Plus,
that's what you need to do.
You got to get past all the environmentalists.
Well,
there.
do you have
So,
that problem in those countries? I thought the dictators, they could
Now
just.
that's
do
where
whatever they want.
Elon's boring company could come in. Like he could do a tunnel from Saudi Arabia underground to Oman, and then you could put the pipeline through. So maybe that's what we
Oh.
should invest in, is the
Maybe
boring
you-
company.
you
just
do
simpler to
a
build
new-
an
a
above
new-
ground pipeline and bury it.
a new canal that cuts through the Suez Peninsula.
Well, I'm working on the figures for Ed for our discussion that Ed and I had at him on what it would take to build a canal. I've pulling up equipment capabilities. It's like 2 routes. The best route to me looks like an 82 kilometer straight through United Arab Emirates, bypassing that piece of land that Oman owns. It makes the canal 50 kilometers longer, but you actually can take advantage of a mountain pass and reduce the average depth of digging by over 550 meters.
Yeah.
So I'm working on those numbers for Ed.
Mm-hmm. Well, the problem right now is we're mired in it. I don't see an exit strategy.
Well, I got to look at the map just to see what Dick is saying. Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, canal. That would be interesting. There is a kind of a
Oh.
mountain range there, so.
Well, if you go from Alcione, there's like a little cove there, what have you. I say little, it's not small. It's on the Persian Gulf side. You go southwest or southeast across
The
the
desert.
Emirates and end up near, I'm going to butcher the hell out of the name of pronouncing it, Fujairah, just north of there. That's an 82 kilometer path with an average digging depth with the canal of 233 meters.
Huh.
Versus if you go north, I looked at north going across the shortest point, 32 kilometers, but then you end up with something that's got an average depth of over 700 meters. So it actually works out better both strategically and materially going south and taking the longer 82 kilometer path.
I was a couple of years ago, or a while ago now, I was on the Rhine-Danube Canal, well, the Main-Danube Canal. That was started in 793 and was finished in the 1980s or 90s. It took, 1,200 years to finish. So sometimes you can have, these canals take a longer time than.
Well, they
you
didn't
think-
have equipment back then, the dump trucks that carried 450 tons of material at a whack. They didn't have
Yeah.
excavators that took 52 cubic meter bites at a whack.
There is a little isthmus at the north that you cut your way through.
A lot of mountain.
Yeah, a lot of mountain.
Your average depth is, by the time you do the math, it's less digging going south.
You can we'll use one of your favorite tools, Dick. We'll use a nuclear weapon to blow a hole in there.
No,
But
that
I hear
was
you.
what was it? Swords to Plowshares, the old
Yeah, Project Plowshare,
Eisenhower's
exactly.
plan to use nukes for construction?
If we could ever do a pure fusion bomb, we could probably do it because it's a lot less radioactive. Alas, we're probably not even looking into it anymore.
Yeah. All right. What are the other big issues going on, guys?
Amy Coney Barrett, anyone?
Talk about it, please. Tell us what's going on
Yeah.
and what you want to say.
Well, basically, Amy Coney Barrett has made it clear that she's consistently under threat, having her not only her life threatened, but her family, and she's clearly scared. And
Resign.
nobody can blame her for that. But when you chose to throw your hat in the ring and become a Supreme Court justice in this environment, you had to know what you were in for. Obviously nobody wants to see that happening, but that's just the world we live in. There's not a politician out there. There's not a talking head pundit out there like Sean Hannity or whoever hasn't had their life threatened. It just comes with the turf. But the big problem is it sounds like anyway that it's affecting her decision making. That she's basically said to hell with it. I'm gonna vote with
What
them
did she
sometimes,
what
and I'm
did she
gonna
actually say, Mike?
I don't know that she said that she admitted anything about her decision making, but there was actually stats put out there that ever since the Dobbs decision, before that, she was 81% of the time she was with the majority, the so-called conservatives on the court, and since then it's down to like 60%.
Yeah,
And
I saw that
she's
too.
constantly with, with Roberts. But it doesn't matter in the particular. She's made it clear that she's getting threats. She's scared. And it seems pretty clear to me it's affecting what she's doing on the bench. And if that's the case, you need to step down.
She didn't say anything about it affecting what she's doing on the bench.
She didn't admit. No,
answer-
she's not going to admit that.
Stephen, what she said was that she has to wear a bulletproof vest, and her kids
Right.
are asking why, and she shouldn't have to explain that to her kids. And I don't blame her. I don't think there's anything wrong with what she said.
No,
Nobody's saying that there is.
I still
the
agree
problem
with Mike.
is
It's
it
what
affecting
comes
her
with the
decision
territory.
making?
Yeah.
Look, I'm sorry. We voted for someone to investigate and sweep up Antifa. And what we got was nothing. Now, we all know that with a few horrible exceptions, the threateners of violence in our society are entirely leftists. Whether they're the trans ones or Charlie Kirk's murder or the guy who shot at Trump or any of these other.
The chase to the U.S. senator stands on the steps of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And tells the justices, "We're coming after you."
Yeah, exactly.
Or the guy today who is running for Congress, and it was in the Marines, and is saying we should kill Trump. He basically came out and said it.
Violence is like 90% plus a leftist phenomenon. Political violence is a leftist phenomenon. Not that there aren't a few awful, crazed right wingers who have committed violence. Anders Breivik in Norway, for instance. Anders Breivik. But like Trump was supposed to appoint someone who was more interested in investigating and rounding up Antifa using RICO laws than he was in going to his girlfriend's concert. And we didn't get that. So it's the same thing was happening in the UK. That was another story. A 78-year-old conservative member of parliament was murdered with a baseball bat by a crazed leftist who drove 3.5 hours from his home, murdered her and drove 3.5 hours back. But, that was obviously a burglary gone wrong, according to the Home Office shills. It's obviously leftist violence. And this poor woman, she was a conservative MP, but she wasn't a conservative MP. You know what I mean? And anybody in Britain who's a member of the Conservative Party is not a conservative. So, leftist violence. And what are we doing about it? Nothing.
What is
Trump?
What are we doing about everything?
I think the
Nothing.
leftist violence dovetails with another angle of the same. It's not a different story. It's just a different angle on the same story, which is the rise of the communists in the Democrat Party. Mike Johnson had some really good comments yesterday about how this is a serious threat and it's a threat to the republic, and that this is not your father's Democrat Party. We need to wake up and we need to respond to them. I had said to you guys in the chat before I even heard Mike Johnson's comments that I'm getting this sense that the Constitution doesn't protect us from the enemy within, and that what's
No.
needed to be done to deal with the enemy within is really not really, it's not authorized by the Constitution. And we as I guess as a community, I don't know if we're a community, we on the right need to confront that issue. And until we do, we're going to have a circular firing squad where, not to defend Barrett and Kavanaugh and Roberts, but where you have people like them who are trying to, or, I don't want to defend them too much, but you're going to have people that are trying studiously to apply the Constitution when the enemies of the Constitution have the Constitution on their side. I mean, you look at Muslims, they're hiding behind Islam and saying that the First Amendment protects them from doing all the things that they want to do. The commies are doing the same thing with the First Amendment and with their freedom to associate, freedom to assemble. Now, we all know that they don't have the freedom. The freedom to assemble doesn't include a violent protest, but right now they're hiding behind constitutional protections, and the Constitution is protecting them, not us. And this is something that we really need to confront. I don't have an answer for it, but my answer is we need to address this problem, and sooner rather than later, because we're losing ground every day to people that are using the Constitution to destroy the Constitution.
And I have a question. The phrase protect from enemies, domestic and foreign, what does that mean?
Just what it says.
I think it means, yeah, exactly. I don't think it's.
So does that allow something super constitutional to protect from domestic enemies?
Well, that's what Lincoln thought. I mean, let's be honest.
Well,
It was
I
Lincoln's
brought
theory.
I brought something to that end up on the show last time around.
I want to push back on what Ed Powell said, though. Have we done enough against Antifa? No. But let's look here on Antifa convictions. Hanel Song, 100 years in prison. Marcela Ruda, 70 years in prison. Cameron Arnold, 50 years in prison. Savannah Batten, 50 years in prison.
For what?
Zachary Everett, 50 years in prison. Bradford Morris, 50 years in prison. Elizabeth Soto, 50 years in prison.
Yeah, you can
Daniel
take out the
Ronaldo,
leaves. The point
Dick
is
is-
to take out the tree using reason.
Yeah.
Not only
But
that, but
it's
it
the whole
sounds just like what
infrastructure.
Ed was saying earlier about, you kill all the generals in Iran, and you got, 1,000 colonels and majors and, a bunch of other lower level people that think that it's their turn. So yeah, we can jail the leaders, and I agree that jailing the leaders is important, but it doesn't solve the problem. It's just a Band-Aid.
Yeah, I
But-
mean,
I didn't say we're doing enough, but they are trying to go after them. All
Right,
those
but
were
that gets back to my
and they were
Dick,
all
that gets-
terrorism charges.
Dick, that gets back to the point that I was making, which is that we're sticking within constitutional framework for a problem that I don't think the Constitution is ever equipped to deal with. How do you
and
deal
I think
with treason?
the founders understood this to a certain extent. That the
Well-
quote about the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed every now and then with the
That
blood
was
of
against
patriots
government.
and
That was
fine.
not against
Okay,
Antifa.
but it applies.
No, that's what I'm wondering. What does it mean, domestic enemies? What are we supposed to be doing against them?
Well,
You
I
got
think
two
there's two
choices. You
different-
either arrest
there's two
them and
different
imprison them, or you kill them.
there's two different enemies, right? There are the communists and there are the Muslims that are taking over.
Well,
I
and
mean, I was
sometimes there's a
on
Venn
X
diagram
today.
overlap
I'm
here.
on X today, and I found easily three different videos of Muslim leaders basically saying they're here to conquer. Islam is America's future. They need to destroy Christianity. I mean, how many churches have
That's-
burned just in the last
and that's-
2 weeks?
That's exactly, it's almost exactly what the Democrat socialists are saying.
Well, I wanted to share. I don't want to. I wanted to share their platform that's been being discussed because I wanted to put it out there, which is, oh, this is so much fun. So, public ownership of major corporations, public ownership of major transportation and energy infrastructure and natural resources, a new U.S. Constitution with a single federal legislature, meaning get rid of the Senate, limits on Supreme Court judicial review, replacing the President and Supreme Court with bodies chosen by Congress, elimination of the U.S. Senate, as I just said, immigration and citizenship, immediate end to all deportations and end to immigrant detention, full amnesty for all immigrants, free migration between countries, voting rights for non-citizens, a 32-hour work week with no reduction in pay or benefits, higher taxes on the wealthy, et cetera, stronger union powers. Where they're going to have jobs, I don't know. Green New Deal, Medicare for all, housing for all, college for all, expansive paid family leave, free universal childcare, and universal pre-K. Working class foreign policy, free Palestine, freedom of movement, allowing workers to migrate freely between countries. Working class democracy, restructuring institutions to place political power directly in the hands of workers, replacing executive and judicial branches with bodies subordinate to Congress. Sorry if some of this is repetitive. That's what I get for
Well,
AI.
if they're going to replace the Constitution, they should at least write a
Yes.
new one for us. You know.
Yes, and that's the bottom line. They are
You forgot the
they're-
free unicorn for everybody.
Yes, exactly. So they
A
want to
unicorn
destroy.
in
They
every
want to destroy
garage.
America.
Yeah.
They hate America. Want to destroy everything. Want to build their communist utopia. And these are all, for the most part, policy proposals, which of course could never just pass unless you just ignore all the rules. So that's enemy number one. And the enemy number two is sitting there again in the shadows, so to speak, waiting for the communists to take over so they can kill them all and take over. So that's a threat that we face, which we've talked about ad nauseum before. But that
What's your solution?
Growing everything. Well, again, as we're discussing, the Constitution is not going to protect us. So what
Well,
choices
listen,
do we have?
the people opposed to that are the majority, and the majority of people don't vote, and they definitely don't vote in primaries. And we could do something if we wanted to, but people don't vote.
Well, we sit here and we wait for the Republicans to do something. Oh, Antifa is a terrorist organization. What have we done? Not much, right? Waiting for the Save America Act, waiting for this, waiting for the Republicans to do something as we've been waiting for decades, and they do nothing. And in fact, they do the opposite. So the writing's on the wall, if you ask me. Nothing's going to change unless people like us do something about it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the sad
Well, what are
reality.
you going to step out and do?
Well, listen.
all
I
we
mean,
can do is
if
talk.
Father over
really.
here, he'd be talking about peaceful separation. I don't think there's going to be any peaceful separation, but secession is one thing. Otherwise, I don't see
Of course,
how
secession is
I don't see
is-
how it doesn't devolve into violence.
It already
secession
is
is,
violent.
is something we've talked about before, but we don't need secession. We need expulsion. That's what we need.
Well,
Have I
that
ever mentioned
requires
that before, Ed?
Republicans having a spine. That
We,
goes
we
back to what I'm
all we
saying.
all mentioned that before.
Are we going to denaturalize Ilhan Omar and kick her the hell out? The
Dick, what
Republicans
did
have
you
the
say?
balls to do that?
What did Dick say?
I asked you if I had ever recommended that before. Expulsion.
And who's going to do the expelling? Who's doing the expelling?
Well, not just who's going to do it. Where are the people going to go?
No, expel California from the union.
no,
Yes,
much
and
better
if
plan.
you guys remember, there were several of us here who worked very hard at one point on exactly that there are people in California who want to have a movement to leave, and they didn't believe that we would love to dump them into the Pacific Ocean. And we can joke about it, but that was as good a plan as any.
Yeah,
And the
my
problem
plan is Lex Luthor's
Republicans-
plan from the original Superman, right?
What's that?
My plan is Lex Luthor's plan from the
Okay,
original Superman.
nobody's
Yes, I know.
ever going to let California leave because then the Democrats would have no power. So they're never going to let that happen. But short of some kind of peaceful separation, there is only one choice, and that's non-peaceful separation. There are no other
So
choices.
here's the solution that's peaceful. Convince the
Okay.
Democrats to expel Texas from the Union.
Okay, then maybe we should work on it that way.
Why? It's about
Why?
to turn blue.
Yeah.
Texas isn't
Dick-
going to turn blue.
Dick, you should
Oh, it's never turning
expound
blue.
on that.
You see how many mosques are being built there, and with the birthright citizenship?
What they're trying to
Oh, you
build.
need another 18 years or so after the
Look, we
babies
can't even
are
get-
dropped and they're
can't
citizens and
even
they're
get-
voting.
Trump to
But
stop
that's
the
what's
H-1B
going to happen.
fiasco.
Yeah, and I think you want to talk about that H-1B. That's one of your issues, and something came out. You want to tell everybody what happened?
Yeah, H-1B is supposed to be for highly skilled immigrants to come over, and it's used mostly for like low-end engineers and even 7-Eleven workers or whatever. And it's 90% Indian. Most of it's controlled by these 3 huge Indian conglomerates who hired the people and then farm them out to places in the United States. The people are essentially, I'm somewhat exaggerating, but they're essentially not allowed to change jobs, so they keep the prices down. They live 12 to a 2-bedroom apartment to keep the because they're not interested in living a life. And it's come out that like 90% of these credentials that these highly skilled Indians have are completely fake.
Can
Now,
you do me a
we all
favor? Can
knew
you
this.
share where the story was and why we believe it?
Okay,
shared
you
it.
tell
I
me. I've
shared it
saw
in
it
the-
multiple
In the
places.
package.
No, but I'm just saying, what's behind it?
What's behind what?
Yeah, if we want to convince somebody that this is true, who studied this and are people rebutting it?
Yes. Unfortunately, I don't have the notes
Okay,
pulled
but-
up, but
I mean, I know you don't usually report garbage. I'm just
well,
curious
I mean,
who's behind it.
it's as far as who discovered that these credentials are fake.
Yeah,
I first saw reporting on this last year. It got brought up. There was a big fight, I know, right before the inauguration between Elon Musk and his baby mama, Ashley St. Clair. And a lot of this came out there. There was another report just this week. That's why I did up the show notes, but I don't have the show notes pulled up. So if you have them pulled up, please interrupt my stupidity.
Well, there was a Fox News story this weekend that we've got
I got
the video on.
okay, and where'd they get the info from?
Well, I've got it silenced here, so.
Okay, and is somebody gonna make hay with this, or the Republicans gonna do nothing anyway? Republicans love the H-1B, don't they?
Well, they want the cheap workers. I think the tech firms in California have entirely been colonized by Indians. So the Googles and the and the Facebooks and whatnot are basically either run by Indians or they're in second tier positions, and they basically use ethnic solidarity for hiring. So they want to hire more of their co-ethnics, and it sort of Indianizes a lot of these tech firms, and
Well,
they
that
don't
makes-
particularly care whether these guys can do the job. They pretty much figured that they could be trained into doing the job. They just care that they're Indian.
But there's another piece to this whole story that isn't being captured in this. And that was with the tip that we have with China. Tech firms have laid off tens of thousands of Chinese and sent them packing. And if we're going to take on the Indians at the same time with the H-1B visa issue and all that, then the deficit in the number of people to actually do the jobs puts them in a hole that might be impossible to dig out of.
Yeah, well, personally, I don't care, but in principle, that these H-1Bs, company after company has been reported that the Americans are laid off, and as part of their severance, they have to train the replacements. I mean, screw these companies. I don't care. They're like Disney. Disney laid off 3,000 people, and they had to train their Indian H-1B replacements, or they wouldn't get any, and sign an NDA saying they wouldn't talk about it, or they wouldn't get their 3-month severance. Screw Disney. I don't care if it goes out of business. Screw Facebook. Facebook's a terrible company. Screw Google. Google's a terrible company too. Screw them all. If they can't hire Americans, let them go out of business.
But it isn't
Okay.
just those companies. It's Microsoft. It's Dell. It's all.
Microsoft is a terrible company.
That's fine. But when you don't have any support for the product anymore that the entire country relies on now,
Yeah,
I'm not
sorry,
saying
I
it
don't
doesn't
care.
need to be fixed, but you got to deal with one issue at a time.
And the issue we
On
got to
this
deal with is
magnitude that we're
stopping
talking about.
H-1B. That's the most important issue. Just stop it. Completely
Wayne,
stop
why
it.
is that the most important
Stop.
issue?
Well, because the border is pretty much closed for illegal immigration, but the border is wide open for quote unquote legal immigration. And that is basically, all the legal ways of coming in, with a few exceptions like, real marriages and whatnot. But that's all scams too. I mean, look at the student visas. Well, you give student visas because some of these countries, whether they're Arab countries or Indian, the Brahmins in India or Chinese, because they pay full boat to these universities, where most universities give, quote unquote, financial aid or discounts. So these foreigners pay full boat because they're subsidized by their large families or their governments or whatever. And so all of these student visas do, it's not like, oh, well, this really smart Chinese person, this really smart Indian person, and this really smart Vietnamese person, we really could use them in our school. Nah, it's a money grab by the universities. And let's review, the universities are some of the worst people in the United States. They
Yep.
teach some of the worst stuff. And
Yep.
and when Trump said, "Oh well, we're going to let in 600,000 Chinese students because if we don't, our universities are going to go out of business," like, but we should want our universities to go out of business.
Yep.
And you can go all the way through these categories of visas, one after another. Even the F2 visa, the marriage visa. There's so many scams having to do with that. They actually try to enforce the F2 visas, right? Okay, you marry someone from another country, F2 visa allows them to come into the United States and live here. Well, okay, that seems reasonable. I mean, you're not allowed to, the United States government shouldn't like prevent people from marrying foreigners. That's an individual right. But like half these marriages are scams, like Ilhan Omar. They're just scams. And while they won't, they do enforce the marriage visa more thoroughly than they do the others. They haven't done anything about Ilhan Omar marrying her brother to let him in the country.
I mean, has there been?
There should be one standard for immigrants and a cap. One standard, excellence in a job, independently verified, like and speaking English. Like they have to take the English language SAT in a monitored environment, and if they get of 1,300, then maybe they can come in if they can find a job at up to a certain cap, a couple 100,000 a year, and that's it. Period. Done. Smart people from abroad. That's it.
There's another group that's wanting all these in, and that's your Democrat politicians. And I just happen to have a piece on my desk here. This is from a Judicial Watch lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania. Now, the actual case is a couple of years old, back 2023, April 2023, when Pennsylvania settled. And in that particular settlement, part of it was removing 178,258 ineligible voters from the voter rolls. Basically non-citizens.
Yeah, the voter rolls are corrupt. That's one of the points of the SAVE Act. I guess.
Well,
the other thing is the government's going to shut down on September 30th. So if you're going to do a reconciliation bill, you might as well fund the entire government for all the horrible things that are in it. You might as well just fund it through the end of Trump's term, January 20th, 2029. Just might as well be the biggest reconciliation bill in the history of the world. $5 trillion or $10 trillion, because the Democrats are going to shut the government down this year, and Republicans aren't going to do anything. So we know that shutting the government down last year was one of the influences in the sort of Democrat sweep here in Virginia. I don't know what they're thinking. They funded ICE through the end of his term. Good. Well, let's fund all the rest of our priorities, not the Democrat priorities, mind you, but none of the education BS or any of that, but all the every single Republican priority through January 20th, 2020. Let's fund them all through this reconciliation bill. And then if they want to shut down the government, and so the education department and the energy department and the commerce department, all that stuff, they don't get to do work, and be like, okay, that's fine. Yeah. Nice.
Can you do a reconciliation beyond the fiscal year?
They did it for the
Did it for
they
ICE?
did it for the last reconciliation
Yeah,
bill.
I guess you're right.
I mean, there's some sort of law that you can't fund the military beyond every 2 years, but the last reconciliation bill did funded certain military programs through January 20th, 2029.
The Constitution directly prohibits.
I understand what you're saying, and I've read the Constitution a billion times too, Dick, but I'm telling you, that's what they did. In some military programs in the last reconciliation bill, which was 2025, mind you, about this time in 2025, funded certain military programs through January 20th, 2029.
How was Obamacare passed?
Reconciliation.
I mean, every trick in the book, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying JD has got to take control of the Senate. I don't see any other path forward for the Republicans. JD has just got to take control of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Just kick Thune to the side. Thune and Schumer are now in parity with one another. One is the majority leader, one is the minority leader. Neither of them are in charge. I'm not the inventor of this idea, by the way. This is something I read on some conservative blog, but seems like a good plan to me. Anything other than paralysis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So who's
100%.
leading the show to JD Vance tonight?
I mean, JD, obviously, I like the guy. I advocated for him to be vice president, but I do not think he's perfect. I don't think he's some sort of a savior. I just think he's better than Trump. If JD were managing the war with Iran, he would not be making all these crazy statements. I mean, let's assume that Iran is run by semi-rational beings. I know it's probably not true, but
No.
let's assume that they were run by semi-rational beings. How could you negotiate with the United States under these circumstances? How is it possible? If we
come on.
wanted to,
You're gonna blame Trump for the failure of negotiations?
no, I told you before that Iran was to blame. But I'm saying, suppose we finally got Iran, we finally hit them enough, they want to negotiate. How could they? With such a loose cannon.
Well, maybe he would behave if they weren't so crazy, even though I'm contradicting myself. But
Well, they are crazy, and they're not even a central government. We talked about that before. So I'm not saying this. I'm just saying, like every time we get into negotiations with Iran, this is 3 times, we end up, assassinating their negotiator. Like, who's going to negotiate with us, right? So, there is a point to this, right?
oh boy. All right, guys, let's start wrapping up. What haven't we covered quickly?
Well, we haven't covered what's about to happen tomorrow night, which is the president is supposed to give a big speech on Georgia, and we presume it's about how it was stolen and how there's all kinds of election fraud going on down in Fulton County. And not only does it potentially, obviously, have impact for 2020, but their 2 sitting U.S. senators may have been fraudulently elected. So we are waiting to see what facts they have. And it's great. Listen, if they come forward and they found stuff, great. But it always then starts to come down to, what are you going to do about it? Who's going to be accountable? What are you going to do about it? You can uncover it. That's great. But it's what happens next that I want to see that really matters.
I think that is the issue right there. Is the elections have gone. All the results out of that 2020 election are effectively done with.
Well,
whether you're talking U.S. Senate seat, whether you're talking House seats, the House seats were done in 2022. But the fact is that Fulton County officials have come out and admitted in court and before the Georgia legislature to fraud in the election. They have now admitted to it.
Well, go ahead.
You can't give Trump back 2020. You can't go back in time and sit in 2020.
Well,
the senators, you can't go back and put them.
If we really had the
you
rule of
can do-
law, if Biden were elected fraudulently, then everything he's done should be wiped out. He was
Well, I was
Didn't be
thinking
there,
that
Mike.
if he can show definitive proof that there was fraud in Georgia or Fulton County, he could use that as a bully pulpit to advocate for the SAVE Act.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah,
if
but
he
there's
doesn't,
there's other things he can do, because if he is, in fact, if it was fraudulent, then it's a violation of civil rights, and he could use the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Act to basically take over the elections in Georgia.
Trump and chew gum at the same time. He could do both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, federalize the election machinery is what he should do. Now they'll cry racism and all that shit, but who cares?
The Democrats have been pining for that forever. They're the ones that want to federalize everything.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, not to defend them, but I mean, the SAVE Act does federalize things. So we've been advocating for that. So we're advocating federalizing.
We're advocating that you're a citizen.
So you got a
I
wonderful
heard everybody
story.
speak.
We were talking about budgets before. I love this story on Los Angeles Unified School District and the raises that they agreed to, even after they were advised of the dreadful consequences of these. Was it 24% over 3 years to the SEIU support staff, 14% for teachers over 2 years, 12% for administrators. And looking just in that school district, what are they saying? $175 million shortfall. Going to add to their contracts 1.13 billion this school year and 1.44 billion in 27-28 school year. Basically, they're going to be financially insolvent.
Yeah.
Couldn't
Somebody
happen to
is
a
going-
nicer bunch of people.
Yeah, but somehow they always finagle their way through, don't they?
Well, I'm wondering how much that's going to cost U.S. taxpayers to go in and bail
Exactly.
them out.
Yes. Somehow, especially if Democrats get into power. So yes.
Well, and that sort of dovetails with the stories that I'm seeing from New York about all the millionaires that have left New York.
Yeah.
Yep. What I saw a number on that, and it is worse in Seattle. The numbers up there was like 200 million in tax that they raised through increased taxes under this new Mayor Wilson that were supposed to fund housing for the indigent. And every single bit of that apparently had to be moved to the general fund to cover basic operating costs because all the rich are fleeing. I missed the number, didn't get the numbers written down, but the amount of money that they have actually lost, how much revenue collection's gone down since they implemented these new laws. And I think it's like, I think the latest thing was there was like 10 major companies in Seattle that represent more than 20% of all taxes for the city.
I saw that the number for New York was $11 billion in tax revenue,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
I think it would be interesting if some conservative think tank would do some economic studies to see how, to project how long is it going to take to empty these cities out and for them to wind up in bankruptcy.
What do you mean empty them out?
Well, how long do we need to wait? I mean, we were talking about Iran earlier. How long is it going to take to strangle them? These blue cities they're effectively strangling themselves and they're committing suicide, but what we don't know is how long it's going to take.
well, it will happen in haste when major corporations start leaving. When you have individual billionaires, it hurts and it's going to make a dent. But when New York City loses all of their commerce and people from New Jersey and Connecticut are no longer commuting there, et cetera, that's when it will go to pot.
Seattle will not be able to pay its bills next year.
You think that soon?
Yeah, well, they did all this special tax and all these companies. Okay, we'll pay it. We're here. We have to pay it, but we're leaving. They fled. They took all that money just to balance the general fund. Yeah.
I think that would be a great development.
Well, the good news is, once the Democratic Socialists have fully taken over, like I showed in the video from Fox News, you won't have to worry about bills anymore. You won't have any bills.
I do think that the plan to starve out these blue cities is a pretty good plan. I know we read a lot about USAID giving money to these crazy NGOs that spend it on crazy things, but there's still an enormous amount of money, federal money, going to NGOs. Now, it's one thing. It's okay, the education department gives $2,000 to every student attending New York public schools. I don't advocate for that, but that's one thing. I obviously all that does is jack up the cost of the school, but it's another. It's we're going to spend $20 million on this NGO and $20 million all to facilitate enhanced learning, or it was Nick Shirley's autism learning and all that. All that could be stopped
at the local kindergarten.
Right, all that should be stopped. Now, of course, it would require testicles on the part of our Republican people, but again, my point is there's this $1.5 trillion, or now if Trump gets his way, and $2 trillion worth of quote unquote discretionary spending. Some of that discretionary spending is for things the Republicans care about. Others are things the Democrats care about. Just use reconciliation to fund all the Republican things, and don't fund the Democrat things at all. Just don't fund them at all. That will go through the normal budget process. So when the Democrats close down the government in September, they're closing all that stuff.
Well, forget
That's
about
my
the
solution.
regular budget process. Why don't we give them what they want when it comes to, say, defunding the police? We should just stop giving them money for police. They don't want police. Why should we spend money sending, federal money going to law enforcement all over the country?
Well, that shouldn't be happening anyway.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
I'll sign up for that.
Yes.
Right, but I'm saying that should be an easy one. They're against funding the police. Okay, let's give them what they want.
But they want those federal dollars.
Sorry. Not sorry.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 100% get rid of the Department of Education, get rid of most of the Department of Commerce, get rid of most of the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, the thing is, if you defund the police, first of all, you're doing to them what they do to us. You're using their own words and their own policies against them. And number two, that's the way to expedite the exodus and expedite the death spiral of those cities. I mean, that's going to make it go faster than anything else you could defund.
Like I said, I
Speechless.
get rid of about 2/3 of the federal government. The amount of programs that the federal government's involved in that they have no constitutional basis for being involved in is
Right. Of course,
it's
Dick,
stupid.
but there's constituency for all of them, and the left, most of them benefit leftists. This is one where they're on TV every goddamn day telling us we got to defund the police. All right, boys and girls, no more money for police.
And non-binary.
Go hire your own social workers.
I'm on board with that. I'm on board with defunding police from the federal government nationwide. Local communities should pay for that.
Right,
Indeed.
but why not use the money that gets sent to the NYPD and use it in some red jurisdiction that needs the money? We should fund our priorities. That's the whole point of the left. They try and defund us and fund themselves. Okay, how about we play the same game?
Yeah, we can do it with 51 votes.
And like I said, that one should be easy. What are they going to do? Are they going to get on TV and say, well, we need to fund our police? We should do standalone bill on that. The defund police in Democrat districts bill, whatever you want to call it, and put it right in their face. We should do things and put things in their face and make them look as stupid as they are. But they won't look stupid. They will vote for it, because if they don't vote for it, then they'll get another commie challenging them in the primaries.
Eve is nodding.
Yeah, well, listen, I live near AOC's district and they're talking about her seriously running for president. So,
She is going to run for president.
oh my God. Oh, well. All right.
Oh my God. Who from that group would you not say, oh my God, to? Rahm Emanuel, maybe? Who? They're all crazy.
Yeah, and one is crazier than the next. I agree. Not much to say. And she's not all that bright, but okay, guys, 30 seconds. Dick, quickies.
Well, you included something on the U.S. budget deficit this week, and I'm not sure exactly what the point of the chart was.
Other than that, it's totally ridiculously out of control and growing every year.
Well, it's definitely doing that.
Yep.
Mhm.
At some point, people have to wake up. We're going to go bankrupt.
Apparently,
some
the
point,
EU
we'll
is
no longer
not
be
in
able
much
to
better
know
shape.
that.
From what I'm hearing, European countries are heading the same way.
Oh, they're in
Worse
worse
countries
condition.
are in much worse shape.
So I
Russia's
don't
in
know
much
what
worse
happens.
shape. China's in worse shape.
What happens when everybody's bankrupt?
I guess the
Everybody
wars will
already
stop.
is bankrupt. We just haven't figured it out yet.
Right,
It's
so
like the
what
coyote
happens-
going off the cliff
Right.
before he sees that the cliff is no longer there.
No longer there. Yes. So I got you.
At some point, we're no longer going to be able to sell bonds. We're no longer going to be able to sell debt. And when that happens, what's going to happen is these social programs are going to fall. There ain't going to be money
I know
for it.
that. We've been saying this for years. I mean, I shared something.
And I'm all up with it. Let them
I don't
fall.
know.
We're like
And there
just
will be
like
anarchy. There will
5
be
or 6 years away from Social Security and Medicare all being broke.
There's a saying in the finance community that the U.S. or the U.S. dollar is the cleanest dirty shirt out there, and I don't think that the U.S. dollar or the U.S. financial system will collapse before the other countries. In fact, I think it's rigged precisely in favor of the U.S. so that other countries will fail before the U.S. fails. So
There's another story where someone asked, "How did you go bankrupt?" And he said, "Well, slowly at first, then very
and then
rapidly."
fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mike, anything quick?
Oh no, we went over all the stuff that I wanted to.
Ed P?
There is absolutely nothing wrong with the United States that could not be greatly ameliorated, if not solved, by mass deportations and a lowering of the number of immigrants and illegal immigrants. Everything we talked about on the show, with I guess the exception of Iran, could be greatly ameliorated if we weren't constantly bringing in endless people.
I think there's too many enemy within. I mean, yes, I'm 100% in favor of what you're saying, Ed, but that would be necessary but not sufficient in my view.
Yeah.
But it would go quite a way. It would go quite a way, especially elections would change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a good start.
And what have the Republicans done substantively since the birthright citizenship case? Give me one thing. Has Trump even issued an EO on anything to stem the tide of people
Somebody's
coming in?
trying to sponsor a bill, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Trump
That's
is
it,
going to
chatter.
be Trump is
Chatter.
petitioning for a reargument, a rehearing. It's not going to
Really?
get granted, but that's I mean
But
what
they're going to be dropping babies everywhere
yeah.
in mass. I mean, I don't know what to say.
All right, Ed
One-
M.
One quick
final
story
words of
that
wisdom.
one quick story that we didn't touch on is that there's talk that Fetterman is going to switch parties and become a Republican, that he's doing some joint fundraising with the other Pennsylvania senator who's a Republican, McCormick. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I've really grown to respect, if not like, Fetterman. He's still a Democrat, but he's the kind of Democrat we could debate with in the past. His positions on economic issues are still not Republican for me, but and I don't know how I feel about him not being in the Democrat caucus. But on the flip side, there's no way they won't primary him 4 years from now, and there's no way he's going to win that primary. So, better.
I would be shocked if that happened, to be honest. But I
What
mean,
happened?
maybe if he
That
switched
switch?
parties.
It's
you know,
interesting
I
because
say,
all the ones
is
saying
he-
that he's
is-
going to flip are Democrats, media and Republican media says no, he's not. He's made clear he's not. So that's an interesting.
Is he doomed if he stays with the D after his name? Because if he thinks
guess-
he's doomed, he's going to switch, or he'll go independent.
I think it's going to depend on what happens in the midterms. I don't think it's going to happen before November. If the Democrats retake Congress, maybe he thinks that he'll try and make his best deal and try and get whatever power or whatever committee assignment he can get. But if the Republicans hold it, I bet in January he'll switch parties.
Well, remember the whole DSA, we're going to replace the Constitution thing with, Venezuela, which is obviously their goal. But really, they're rallying around an anti-Israel stance. That's their kind of core that gets these people together. And Fetterman is very, very, very pro-Israel. And so I think if he thinks that you can't be nominated in Pennsylvania without being anti-Israel,